Recently, a shunned college professor discovered a gene everyone possesses in their body that is responsible for wealth and abundance. Hidden deep within the ancient Vedas religious texts that date back to 1000 BC, a map encoding the entire human genome was discovered. A gene is said to be responsible for the activation of our root chakra, which is responsible for our ability to generate wealth, become rich, and create limitless abundance. Even though everyone possesses this gene, it's only active in less than 1% of people, and those people all end up becoming wealthy. This discovery is practically as important as the discovery of electricity, but it has widely been ignored by the mainstream media and other scientific journals. Not only has it been ignored, it has been censored and removed from social media platforms. It turns out someone or some group does not want this information being revealed. After all, what would happen if people actually learned how to activate this gene in their body? The wealthy 1% of them would finally be forced to share the wealth with the rest of the world. But it's not possible to activate this gene, or at least, that is what they told us. It turns out, the same Vedas texts also contain instructions hidden deep within that explain how to activate this gene. And for the first time ever, it's being revealed to the public. It only takes a couple of minutes to do and is so simple, anyone can do it. Once you activate it, the floodgates will open and you will begin to experience unbelievable abundance and money flow directly into your life. So sit back, relax, and be sure to watch this important presentation before it's taken down. Make sure to watch it to the very end to see the 100% true story of how it was discovered, real scientific proof that this exists, and how you can easily activate this gene in your own body in minutes. Hi, I'm Tim, and this is my loving wife, Stephanie, and my beautiful daughter, Skyla. And even though I'm what most people would consider very wealthy, that was not always the case. You see, before I discovered something that finally let wealth endlessly flow into my life and allowed me to buy luxury cars, vacation homes, and afford to take my family on long, lavish vacations, I was just what most people would consider a normal guy. But being a normal guy in today's world is actually not a good thing. Let me explain. According to a recent study done by the Lending Club, 61% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And sadly, I was no different. I was on the verge of being dead broke. Even though I went to college and landed a job as a high school music teacher, the student debt, the car payments, the unexpected expenses of everyday life, and then my wife getting laid off from her job really made it almost impossible for us to stay afloat. I'm sure you can relate on some level. But to make matters even more difficult, my daughter Skyla had a medical condition that required her to take an expensive medication that was only partially covered by my insurance through my job. I tried the best I could to find a way to generate extra income to help support our family and, most importantly, afford the medication for my daughter. I worked odd jobs during the summer off time from my teaching job, but it still wasn't bringing in enough money. Next, I tried to make extra money from the internet. I tried a few of these get-rich-quick products from several experts, promising me that I would earn $10,000 per month, and needless to say, it didn't work. Then I tried several different manifestation courses from gurus claiming that they studied in Tibet that told me my brain waves were the problem and were preventing me from attracting wealth. Again, those didn't work either. So instead of making extra money for my family, I ended up losing more money. Struggling financially was nothing new to me, however. I tried to tell myself that money wasn't that important and that things will eventually get better, but they never did. After all, my parents went through the same thing. But ultimately, their financial stress caused them to get a divorce. However, my dad did go on to remarry and even started his own business, which surprisingly started to make him a lot of money. The problem was he was working almost 80 hours a week and ultimately contributed to him having a heart attack and passing away. Now, this is where things get interesting. Because even though what happened to me next was the most humiliating thing to ever happen to me, It led me down a path that eventually let me discover how to effortlessly create wealth using something hidden deep within our own body. Something that has long been forgotten, overlooked, or possibly even intentionally covered up. It's something anyone can do, and it only takes a few minutes to activate it. It has worked for me, my family, my friends, and now I'm starting to share it with the rest of the world. I'm going to show you how it made me rich, and I'm also going to show you the scientific proof that it's real. So please, stick around for this because I'm going to show you how you can do the same thing I did, and the countless others I've already tested it on. So, as I mentioned, my financial problems weren't getting any better, and eventually everything came to a head. It was during Christmas break. We have a few weeks off from work, and every year we have a party at our house. We invite our friends, family, and coworkers over to have food, drinks, and basically just have a good time. I went to grab some pizzas, and when I came back with the food, I went into the house to ask someone to help me carry them in. As I went back outside, I was shocked to see a tow truck lifting the front wheels of my car off the ground. "Hey, what are you doing?" "Stop!" I shouted as I ran toward the truck. I slipped and fell face first into a huge gaping hole of muddy water. As I wiped my face off, I noticed my family, friends, neighbors, and even some coworkers of mine gathering behind me to see what was going on. I continued to head toward the tow truck driver and yelled that there must be some sort of mistake. But all he did was turn his head out of the driver's side window, smile at me with his evil-looking grin, and say, "Should have made your car payment, buddy." He then tore out of there, along with my car dragging behind his truck, scraping the bumper on the side of the curb as he left. As I turned to face the crowd of people behind me, I felt as if I wanted to crawl into a hole and die. But what came next was the worst part. My daughter came running out of the house saying, "Daddy, Daddy." My medicine was inside the car. She was crying hysterically because without her medicine, she would develop incredibly painful migraines, and sometimes would even have seizures. She looked at me and said, "Daddy, am I going to die?" As she wept. In her little world, all she understood was that she was sick, and the medicine is what was making her better. My heart broke at that very moment. I've never felt more embarrassed and disappointed in myself. I couldn't even take care of my own family. And now, everyone was there to witness it firsthand. "No, sweetheart, don't worry. We'll get your medicine back tomorrow," I said, trying to calm her down. Then, as if things couldn't be any worse, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a few people across the street, some teenage boys laughing and pointing at me while recording me with their phone. I recognized one of them. It was someone who was always getting in trouble at our school. I just ignored them, hoping they'd lose interest and go find something else to do. After having my entire manhood ripped out of me, I turned to face my guests and walked back into my house. They tried to make me feel better by saying things like, "Don't worry, I'm sure it was a mistake." But I knew deep down it wasn't. I did only miss one payment, but the truth was, I was starting to fall behind on my bills. No matter what I did, I just couldn't seem to get ahead. Not soon after that, people started to leave, one by one, and our party that we spent weeks planning was over before it even began. After the last person left the house, my wife looked at me and said, "We need to talk." You know that's never a good thing when you hear those words. "I know how bad you must feel right now, but we can't keep living like this." My wife wasn't angry at me, but she was disappointed, which actually made me feel worse. She decided that she was going to go stay with her mom for a few days with our daughter while the incident blew over, and hoped the neighbors had stopped talking about it by the time she returned. The next morning, I awoke to my phone buzzing more than an angry wasp's nest. I checked my phone and noticed I had 30 new messages from Facebook. That's odd, I thought. I almost never get messages on Facebook. Remember the troublemaker kid across the street that was filming me? Let's just call him Jimmy. Well, Jimmy went ahead and posted the video he recorded all over social media of the tow truck hauling away my car, me falling face first into the mud and chasing after the driver. But what really upset me was that he even recorded my daughter crying, and you could hear him laughing in the background. My anger was soon shifted to more utter embarrassment when I started to read the comments. Hey, look on the bright side. Now he can save money on gas and ride his bike to school. Maybe we should create a GoFundMe page to get his car out of the impound lot. Ha 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 ha. Are teachers allowed to ride the bus to school? Because he might have to now. And the worst of them all, I feel bad for his daughter. Could you imagine if that was your dad? Of course, there were some sympathetic comments, but it's the mean ones that you really remember. I just wanted to disappear at that moment, to be anywhere other than here, or to be anyone else but myself. I started to nearly have a panic attack thinking about having to go back to teach in a few weeks after the break was over. I would be the laughingstock of the entire school, and also of my peers. Later on that morning, one of my good friends from work, Steve, who was a math teacher there, called me to talk. He told me he had seen the video and asked how I was doing. Well, I just got back from the pawn store to sell my favorite guitar so I could afford to buy new medication for my daughter. Her medication was stuck in an impound lot in the car. So, yeah, not too great. He invited me to come down to Florida and stay at his condo for a while. Him and his wife were going to be busy going to a wedding, and he figured it would be good for me to get away. I told him I'd love to, but that I was pretty short on cash right now and couldn't afford the plane ticket. He told me to check my email in a few minutes as we continued to talk. Listen, there's an interesting event going on near my condo in Florida. It's literally just a few minutes away. It was a convention of sorts that had several guest speakers who were giving talks about things like chakras, quantum physics, and even genetics. Turns out, one of Steve's old college professors was going to be speaking there about something pretty controversial. Supposedly, he discovered something he called the wealth gene. I think you should really go to this. Who knows, maybe you'll get some fresh insight into your life. If anything, you at least need to get away for a few days until things die down here. I got a notification that I had a new email, and when I checked it, it was a round-trip ticket to Florida, purchased by Steve. This is the nicest thing someone has done for me in a very long time. Thank you so much, I told him. You're welcome. Just try to have a good time. And tell my professor I said hi. Maybe he'll remember me, if you go to the convention. After a few days, I was off to Florida, and this was the trip that totally changed my life, and others around me, forever. I walked outside of Steve's condo toward the beach and started reluctantly heading to the convention he talked about. Once I got to the entrance of the resort where the convention was being held, I saw a little further down the beach was a tiki hut-style bar with a couple of guys pounding down some beers. For a second, I thought about just heading right over there and sitting myself down and drinking until I didn't have to think about my problems anymore. But something inside me told me no. I didn't want to let Steve down, and something was telling me that I should go to this convention. After all, everyone in there looked well-dressed, happy, and, well, wealthy. I wanted to be like that, not the gloomy-looking people at the bar. After having a few appetizers and socializing a bit, I went into the conference room where I listened to presentations about chakras, quantum physics, and many other topics. I have to admit, I was a bit skeptical coming to see these presentations, but they were absolutely fascinating. The first presentation opened up with a scientist who quoted the famous physicist Niels Bohr. Everything we call real is made of things that cannot be real. He went on to explain that everything in the universe is actually made up of energy, not matter. The more closely you look at atoms under a microscope, the more you realize they are not solid at all, but simply vibrations and energy. Even Nikola Tesla once stated that if you want to understand the universe, think about it in terms of frequency and vibration. He concluded his presentation with another quote from a professor of physics and astronomy at Johns Hopkins University. Get over it and accept the inarguable conclusion. The universe is immaterial, mental, and spiritual. This really got me thinking. Maybe reality isn't exactly what we perceive it to be. Heck, maybe there was something to those products I tried before that talked about manifestation. After all, everything in the universe does appear to be connected in some way. But what came next shocked me more than anything. It was Steve's old college professor, Dr. Thomas. His presentation fascinated me. After studying the ancient chakra system originating out of India from a 3,000-year-old text called the Vedas, He started noticing a relationship between the different energy points, or chakras, and genes in our own body. For those of you who don't know, our body is made up of chromosomes, which contain genes, and genes are simply made up of DNA. You can think of genes as the programming instructions for our body. They control practically everything in our body, from the color of our hair, how tall we are, even how quickly our body ages. And even though they've completed the map of our entire genome, which is just a term for all of the genes in our body, scientists still do not know what over 25% of our genes in our own body do. Somehow, Dr. Thomas had linked the root chakra, the chakra responsible for wealth creation, to a gene located in the second chromosome. He had discovered, encoded in the Vedas text, instructions for where this gene was located in our body. It turns out all of these genes that apparently didn't do anything may have some hidden effects after all. His research involved checking over 100 very wealthy people's genes to look for the presence of this wealth gene. Each one of these individuals had a net worth of over $10 million. Sure enough, every person he tested did have this gene, and it was activated. He ended his presentation by saying that there is still a lot we do not know about our own body, especially our genes. He was theorizing that the ancient Vedas text understood a lot more about reality and our body than we realized. Perhaps the undiscovered genes could be considered our spiritual genes and be responsible for things that we don't quite understand yet, like our connection to the universe. I decided I wanted to talk to him after he was finished and waited for the room to clear out. When I approached him and asked if I could ask him a few questions, he immediately got defensive. "What three-letter agency are you from? You already had my funding pulled. Now I'm not allowed to talk to people either?" It must have been my dark glasses, I'm guessing. I started to laugh and then mentioned I loved his presentation and wanted to know more about this wealth gene he discovered. Once I mentioned that his old student Steve told me about the conference and that I should see her presentation, he calmed down some. Steve, yes, I remember him. He was a great student. Not the best dressed guy in the room, though. That made me chuckle a bit, since it was true. Eventually, he agreed to meet me at a local bar to tell me more about his research. Once we got to talking and had a few beers, he started talking more about his research and how he was awarded a multi-million-dollar grant from the National Institute of Health. He explained that once he started linking this mysterious gene to the Vedas text and started writing about how it is the key to unlocking our wealth chakra, his funding was suddenly pulled. Some very powerful people must have pulled some strings, because the NIH doesn't just pull funding away like that. I think I discovered something that someone or some group did not want revealed to the general public. Perhaps they wanted to keep this knowledge to themselves. I told him the story of what happened to me and how Steve had paid for a ticket for me to come down here and take my mind off of things. He could tell I was pretty upset about it, because truthfully, it was all I could think about, going home and still having to deal with these awful financial problems while also facing the kids at school after I had that embarrassing incident at my house. I'm sure that my root chakra, or wealth gene, as you say, doesn't exist. He chimed in. Actually, it does exist, but it's not activated in 99% of people from my research, only the very wealthy. I believe it's responsible for what guides them to incredible success and wealth. Tell you what, he said, why don't you stop by my house and I'll show you for yourself where your wealth gene is located in your DNA. I have a lab that I built in a spare room of my house. I'm sure it isn't activated if I do have one, I said, but yes, that sounds interesting. After arriving at his house, I saw all kinds of expensive-looking microscopes and other crazy equipment. I swabbed my cheek with a cotton swab to give him a sample of my DNA, and placed it on a tray of one of these machines. He told me to look at the monitor, and then he said, "You see, this gene is located in your second chromosome, and the root chakra also happens to be the second chakra. This gene you're looking at inside of that chromosome is the gene I discovered. I'm sorry to say, it's not activated for you." But don't worry, it's nothing personal. I've only seen it activated in less than 1% of people. Is there a way to activate it somehow? Not that I know of, he replied. There was some new cutting-edge technology starting to appear that was allowing some very simple edits to genes using CRISPR technology. But that would cost millions of dollars to even try. My heart sank. I knew there had to be a reason I met Dr. Thomas and went to this convention. There had to be a way to activate this somehow. And then it hit me. One of the presentations I saw earlier that day was by Dr. Emoto, who ran a famous experiment that proved that different types of frequencies can affect the formation of snowflakes. Human thoughts and frequencies were actually proven to be able to impact their shapes. And if everything is made up of energy, frequencies, and vibrations at the atomic level anyway, wouldn't this same phenomenon be able to potentially affect our genes as well? He agreed, but what frequency could it be? There are millions of frequencies after all. Maybe those manifestation products I tried using frequencies to reprogram my brainwaves had it wrong. Maybe you were supposed to use frequencies to activate your genes instead. Do you think there is something else in the Vedas manuscript that may talk about this? Maybe it's hidden there. You might be right. Give me some time to go through the Vedas text again. It will take me a bit of time to decode some of the Sanskrit, he said. I went home that night, but could barely sleep. I just knew that we were onto something big. So the next day he called me, excited, and said that he had discovered some other things he missed previously while researching the root chakra. They appeared to be numbers, possibly frequencies. That had to be it. I had several programs on my laptop that I used to make music, and they were capable of creating pretty much any frequency there was to a reasonable degree of accuracy. So I went over there with my laptop to run the experiment. One by one, we tried each frequency that he found and looked at my gene to see if anything had changed. By the time we got to the very last one to try, my heart was racing. And then, after playing it and looking at the gene with the equipment, there was still no change. I felt like all of the air was sucked out of the room. Well, I figured, it had to be too good to be true. My flight left the next day, and I needed to start thinking about what I was going to do with my life anyway. We decided to take a break and have some food, and when we returned to his lab, my laptop was playing some music from my playlist, and it happened to be playing some Mozart. You know, Mozart composed some of his most famous works according to the golden ratio. Wow, I didn't know that, he said. Well, that's funny because DNA molecules also are in the exact same ratio as the golden ratio. In fact, the more I thought about it, the golden ratio is found in almost everything. Flowers, weather, galaxies. The frequencies of what stars pulsate at. It was even encoded into the Mona Lisa painting. That's it. The golden ratio. 1.618 hertz. That's the key. The frequency of the golden ratio. It's the key that connects and unlocks everything. As I configured my software to combine the golden ratio frequency with the frequencies he discovered in the Vedas, I had butterflies in my stomach. I pressed play, and then we watched. At first, nothing happened. But then, the gene started to activate before our very eyes. First, it was very light, but it began to darken the longer the audio continued. We looked at each other in disbelief. I hugged Dr. Thomas and said, "This discovery is probably the biggest breakthrough in the last 100 years. We did it." Then we examined Dr. Thomas's genes, and sure enough, it was activated as well. The next day, I headed to the airport to return home. We both decided to keep this to ourselves and to stay in touch while we see if things started to happen. I mean, besides the excitement, I felt pretty normal. Maybe nothing would really happen, even if we did modify that gene. When I returned home, I immediately began working on refining the frequencies even more, to the nearest decimal point, and also added in other background sounds to make the audio more listenable. While I was doing this, my phone rang. It was a lawyer. He asked me about the video online. Apparently it had gone viral. The one where the tow truck ripped my car out of my driveway in front of all my friends and family. How would you like to make them pay for what they did to you? He said. I just remembered that tow truck driver's evil grin and immediately said, yes. He went on to say that they broke several laws by towing my truck and had already checked into my case. This is not the first time he had sued them either, and won. Do you think you can make them pay for the scratch they made on my bumper and maybe the $200 impound fee they charged me? He laughed and said, when I'm done with them, they're going to be buying you a brand new car. I didn't even have to do anything besides pay him a fee of the money he collected. And sure enough, they settled the case instantly for $32,322. I guess my lawyer was threatening to sue them for emotional damages they caused me as well. But that's not all. A few days after that, my stepmom called me out of the blue. I hadn't spoken to her ever since my dad passed away. She said she had been doing some soul searching and was feeling guilty about not sharing my dad's money with me, his only son. She asked for my bank details, and the next day, I saw that I had an incoming wire transfer for $325,000. Stuff like this never happens to me. So I knew it was because of my wealth gene. I spoke to Dr. Thomas, and things started happening to him as well. He was offered 7 figures to start a new lab at another university, which he gladly accepted, all within 3 weeks of activating his wealth gene. I even had my friend Steve test it out, and to his surprise, it started to work wonders in his life too. He was suddenly awarded a patent he applied for years ago on something to do with injection molding, and a company offered him $25,000 per month for the rights to use it. Needless to say, he didn't need to be teaching high school math anymore. Eventually, I left my job as a teacher and used my newfound wealth to open up several music stores, where I still teach music lessons occasionally. And before I knew it, I became a millionaire, all within a year of activating my wealth gene. As I continued to refine the audio I developed with Dr. Thomas, I finally got them exactly where I wanted them and had them professionally recorded in a sound studio. So I'm proud to introduce to you the Wealth Genome. This is the only known method out there that's designed to activate the gene located in everyone's body. We named the Wealth Gene by fully activating your root chakra. Just think, by simply listening to these audio tracks for a few minutes per day, you will be opening the literal floodgates of unlimited wealth directly into your life. It's no wonder that they tried to suppress this information for so long and stop Dr. Thomas's research into this topic and other gene researchers as well. What were they afraid we'd discover? The fact you've been trapped in an endless rut trying to make money is not your fault. It's practically impossible to get ahead that way. The truth is, there is no reason to work 10 or sometimes 12 hours per day just to try to make ends meet and put food on the table for your family. There is an easier, better way to make money, and this is it. There is no reason to have to work multiple jobs or spend a fortune going back to school, only to end up in more debt. You don't have to wake up super early, go to work to a job you hate, and still never be able to fully live your life, let alone save enough to retire one day. This is not living your life. This is wasting your life. The Wealth Genome is the way out. And if it wasn't for my discovery, if I would have kept on the path I was going on, I may have ended up divorced and penniless. And that's the last thing I'd want you to have to go through. I want you to feel what it's like to wake up without worry, to wake up happy, excited, fulfilled, and to feel what it's like to really live life to the fullest, just like the other 1% of wealthy people in this world. You can literally listen to the audio anywhere, from your phone, your computer, your speakers, headphones. It doesn't matter. Each audio track will activate your root chakra, or your wealth gene. But we recommend you rotate the audio tracks to get the maximum effect. Just listen for 5 minutes per day, or more if you'd like, and rotate the audio tracks you listen to occasionally. That's it. It really couldn't be easier. You may start to notice things right away, but it could take up to a week for some people. The Wealth Genome has changed the lives of everyone who's tried it. It changed my life, Steve's life, Dr. Thomas's life, my family's lives, and other people that I've let try it. But you don't have to take my word for it. Just listen to what these people who tried it had to say. Jenny from San Diego, California. Wow, I'm so excited. Ever since I started listening to the audio tracks, my life has started to change in ways I couldn't believe. First, the IRS sent me a letter, but this was to tell me they had made a mistake on my tax refund and actually were sending me an additional $4,502.23. After that, I get an email stating that a class action lawsuit I was a part of from 6 years ago that I totally forgot about had just been settled, and wanted to know where they could send the $8,293 I was owed. It's only been a week since I started, and I can't wait to see what comes next. Michael from Sydney, Australia. I was a bit skeptical about the Wealth Genome because other manifestation-style products never worked for me. But the more I read about it, I knew that it had to be true. Why else would they try so hard to censor this information if there wasn't something to it? Thank God I did give it a shot. Shortly after listening to the audio tracks, literally within 3 days of doing it, a small investment I had in some random stock shot up over 10,000% out of nowhere, making me more than $50,000. Now, I do have to warn you about something. Since we have made this website public, we've been flooded with people joining. We can only support so many people. This was meant to initially be a test run and open it up to the public to see how it goes, but it's becoming so in demand that we can barely keep up. Since I'm personally involved with each person who joins, that means it's a lot of emails I'm answering on a daily basis. I can only handle so much, so we do not plan to allow public access to the Wealth Genome for too much longer. We've also had our content taken down across several social media platforms, and we have attacks on our website trying to take it offline almost on a daily basis now. So if you want to join, I'm urging you to do it today while you still can, because I'm sure we won't keep this available to the public for much longer, and you won't find anything like this anywhere else. Now, I'm not asking for a bunch of money for the Wealth Genome either, even though I could easily ask for thousands of dollars or more, and have had friends and family ask me not to share it with the public at all. I know it's the right thing to do. There is no reason to go through the suffering of never having enough money any longer. I'm not going to even ask for $500. All I'm asking for is a small one-time donation in the amount you see below to help pay for the costs of running this website and the IT staff that help keep it online. And you'll get instant access to the Wealth Genome, even if it's 3 a.m. on the weekend, as soon as you go through our secure checkout page. Plus, there are no shipping charges. I have something else to give you if you act today. Many unexpected changes will happen in your life when you start to become wealthy. Coming into a lot of money quickly can be challenging for some people to manage, which is why I decided to add in 3 free gifts when you take action today to help you preserve and grow your wealth even more. Free bonus number 1, Millionaire Money Experiments, $47 value. This guidebook and accompanying audio tracks will guide you through 7 simple experiments designed to help speed up the activation of the Wealth Genome, amplify the results you achieve, and also to help you develop a millionaire mindset by strengthening your connection to the universe and eliminating any negative thought patterns you may have. Free bonus number 2, Automatic Money Creation Guidebook, $67 value. Created by one of my friends whose wealth gene I helped activate, this guidebook is essential in today's modern world where we cannot rely on just one stream of income, like a job. You'll learn how to easily create passive income streams that will pay you royalties or income forever, even while you sleep. Once you combine this with your wealth gene activation, the possibilities are limitless. Free bonus number 3, 10 profitable, easy businesses to start with no money, $97 value. Several of the people that I've helped have gone on to start businesses that have made them enormous amounts of money. I put together a list of the most common businesses my students have started that made them a ton of money. While there are countless businesses they've started, I've only included the ones that were easy and required no money to start. These bonuses, a $211 value, are yours free, when you get the Wealth Genome today. On top of that, you're going to get direct access to me through my private, personal email address, and I'll be here every step of the way to answer any of your questions, or to just be someone to talk to. Like I said, I love to help people, and nothing brings me more joy than getting emails from people whose lives I help change. I like to follow up with my students and hear about how their wealth gene activation has changed their lives, and I can't wait to hear how it changes yours. All you have to do is click the button below to get started. Now, I've tried to make it as easy as possible for you to try out the Wealth Genome and activate your wealth gene. I don't want anything to prevent you from experiencing the life-changing effects of having unlimited wealth and abundance. Everyone deserves to experience it. Heck, if they didn't, why would it be encoded directly into their DNA? I've kept the price as low as I can, to the point where I'm actually losing a little bit of money. And I've shared my story and others who have tried it for themselves. But hey, I get it. You might still be a bit skeptical or worried about whether or not it'll work for you. After all, when I was struggling, I lost money trying to buy every guru product who promised to help me make money. So if anyone understands, it's me. I can assure you, I'm no guru. And this is no get-rich-quick scheme. It's based on pure science, and I've shown you the evidence. And to finally put your mind at ease, because I don't want anything standing in your way, I'm going to offer you a very special guarantee. It's not a 30-day money-back guarantee or even a 60-day money-back guarantee. I'm going to offer you a full year to try out the Wealth Genome 100% risk-free. If you decide that you aren't interested in becoming wealthy or it doesn't work for you for any reason at all, you can email me or call us and we'll refund you the entire amount right away. No hassles, no prying questions. I've done all of the hard work for you, putting together this one-of-a-kind program for you and making sure that you have zero risk whatsoever to try it out. So you have a choice to make, just like I had a choice to make while I was at that beach in Florida. I could have just continued walking straight past that luxury resort and skipped the convention to that rundown bar to drown my sorrows away. That would have been the biggest mistake of my life. But I didn't do that. I took action, like I'm asking you to do today. That one decision I made to take a chance and go to that convention changed my life forever. Just like this decision you're about to make right now will dramatically affect the course of your life. After all, I'm sure there is a reason you discovered my page today. Maybe it's the universe guiding you in the same way it did to me. So I ask you, please don't ignore everything I've shown you today, because the last thing I'd want is for you to hate yourself later for not taking this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity today. You don't have to keep struggling and dreaming of a day when you can finally stop worrying about money, because that day has finally arrived if you take action. If you continue on the path you're on, most likely things aren't going to change and may continue to get worse. After all, Albert Einstein once famously said, "The definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing but expecting different results." Or you can take action today and try the Wealth Genome. Just imagine waking up feeling excited about the day and being in control of how you spend your time without that annoying, nagging feeling of unpaid bills in the back of your mind, or wondering how you're going to be able to pay your rent for the month. Experience what it's like to have that 100-pound weight of worry you carry around on your back melt away as your daily anxieties turn into daily experiences of joy and fulfillment as limitless wealth and abundance continues to flow into your life. This can and should be the way you go through life. Happy, fulfilled, excited, and of course, wealthy. It's time you experience the Wealth Genome for yourself. I'm so excited for you, and I cannot wait to hear how it has changed your life. Just click the button below and try it for yourself, 100% risk-free for an entire year. See you on the other side.